Hi, my name's Emma, and today I'm joined by Dave.
Hello. Hi, Emma.
Yeah, Rob's had a transformation.
I know, yeah. I'm not Rob in disguise, honest. Yeah, I'm here again for the final episode of season 2. I joined you guys for final episode of season 1. We did a bit of a Q&A that time, which was a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm the station manager of Cross Rhythms, and we produce Hope in the City, which is great. But yeah, it's really fun to be sat this side of the desk and joining you. And
I'm glad to have you join me. Really nice. So we're going to have a look at some of the highlights, really, of this season. Some of the guests that we've had on this season, and it has been really like a real variety. I think when I think back, we started off with Malcolm Duncan, and obviously his story through loss and pain. He called it Good Grief, based on his book Good Grief. That was really amazing. It was a book I read after James had passed away, and it just so profoundly spoke into my experience of that time. And we did the Zoom interview with him, and he was just he was really profound. And we've had pregnancy crisis care as well, Jane and Sarah. And they were phenomenal, sharing the work that they do in Plymouth with people whose hearts are broken. And it just comes out of an active service to the Lord, to meet people and help them where they're at.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, did you have any thoughts on those two?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm approaching it as a listener in that sense. So I kind of love listening back to them, and it's obviously a different experience for you guys doing the interviews themselves. But I love how it's been a real wide variety of people who, the name's Hope in the City. People are bringing hope to people where they're at in terms of pregnancy crisis care. That's kind of their MO. Or it's people who, Malcolm Duncan, I suppose, is a bit of both. He's found hope through grief, but through being really real and vulnerable with it and sharing just how rubbish it is. But now he's kind of come out the other side and is able to recognize that grief, isn't all bad in that sense, in the sense that if you deny it and you pretend you're not struggling, then that's actually going to be way worse for you. And so it's recognizing that you need to process that, you need to give yourself time, which I know is something you shared on in the first season and is kind of your experience. But the fact he's now, again, sort of like you, I suppose, taking that experience and wanting to help people, wanting to bring hope to people is a really amazing thing.
I mean, for years he was like very involved in things like Spring Harvest, and he's known like nationally as a leader and teacher, but it's just the way he's used those God-given skills to actually bring hope at an individual level. Which was really good. I mean, after that we also had we had the girls. We had Abby and Amy, which was really good to listen to. And we had Liam as well, and the contrasting stories. Rob and I touched on this in the last podcast, and we said, though, their stories were completely different. The girls have grown up in a Christian environment and appear to have made, good choices. Liam's choices with his drug addiction were very different, but they talked about the influences on their lives. So, but I think the one that perhaps stood out, my ultimate one takeaway, I guess, because they all had amazing stuff in them, would be the one with Simon and Brian when they talked about PTSD. I just think of Simon as this young man, I think he said he was like 19, 18, and he was out, and the things that he witnessed when he was out serving on tour in Afghanistan. So I think we're going to have a look at that now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this episode, as we've said, a little bit looking at some highlights and stuff, and Emma's picked a couple of highlights. So this first one is Simon. It's from episode 8 of this season. So if you're just tuning into this episode, go back and listen to that one in full. But here's a little highlight for you.
And it also immediately put distance between me and my civilian friends. I just felt like they were just living in some bubble,
right?
Like complete non-reality.
No one else understands.
Yeah,
it must be so isolating.
Yeah, and I just felt like they didn't get it, and they didn't really want to know me. They didn't know how to handle me actually as well. I didn't know how to handle me.
Had you changed yourself? Did you feel like your behaviours? So how did you change?
Just serious about life. Like I could not adapt to civilian life again. I felt like I had to control every situation because that's what we were doing in Afghanistan. Everything had to be controlled.
So like hyper-vigilant all the time.
Yeah, hyper-vigilant.
Like you were on guard.
Yeah, constantly. Nightmares started. After I left the Marines, nightmares started. And they were always around two things: imminency and inadequacy. And the
imminency, what do you mean by that?
As in something's going to happen straight away. So
okay, be on alert.
Yeah, so we were on patrol once, and it was fine. It's a normal patrol. Came back and we're sitting down having our usual cup of tea, and then there was a massive explosion. And that was when a suicide bomber had detonated the bomb a few hundred meters up the road at the police compound. It shook the whole building, shook everything. So we had to quickly get up and respond to that.
So even though consciously you knew you were back, well, Plymouth, I presume, at some other level, it's like anything can happen.
Yeah.
Which is odd, because we know those things don't happen in Plymouth on a day-to-day basis, but your brain hadn't caught up with that reality, with the new context that you were in. It was still unprocessed. I know you a little bit, Simon, but it's really interesting hearing before that actually in the midst of this, you started taking your faith more seriously. Do you want to explain what that looked like?
Yeah, there was a real definite point when I came to faith. So I lent a lot more heavily on alcohol after Afghanistan. So I was getting drunk probably 3 or 4 times a week. I tried to speak to people about it in the Marines, and they said, "Oh, that's just part of being a Marine." And
it's normal kind of culture for me.
Yeah.
And was that to try and get outside of your thoughts, really, to
definitely.
as
escape myself,
anesthesia kind of escape yourself.
But the trouble is, whereas when I used to drink prior to Afghanistan, I was quite a friendly drunk. After that, I was just really aggressive
and angry.
Yeah, right. And it got to the point. It was actually October 31st, Halloween 2010. I'd been drinking sort of 2 nights in a row. Spent about 500 quid on drink, I think, in total. And I was on a military base up north doing a driving course. I just went to speak to one of the chaplains there. It was in the evening, and no one was there. They'd gone home, understandably. So, but I just remember reading, opening the Bible and just trying to find out actually what happened in the end times. So I've been raised as a little bit as a Christian. My mum had taught me about the Bible and stuff. And I just remember reading a revelation about the book of life being opened, and whoever's names are not written in the book of life, they didn't enter into eternal rest. And that really shocked me. And that was the final.
That rest was a strong word,
piece of
isn't
the
it?
puzzle. Yeah.
With your brain as it was, rest is what you wanted.
Yeah.
And I guess that's like flipping heck. I really want that. Yeah.
And I literally felt my heart skip a beat in that moment. I walked out of there, changed man. And I had so much control over my drinking. I stopped drinking for 10 months. And my anger as well. And my friends just couldn't believe the change.
So you literally went in one man and came out another man.
Yeah.
A different man.
I think to people listening, they might struggle to think. So there's this background fear, or actually sometimes right in the foreground. Then you read something in the Bible that actually sounds really scary as well. But you come out with peace. How just put that together for us. What does that? What do you feel that you actually did as a result of reading about a future time where God puts things right? Some people come to Him, some don't. The world's restored, but actually, that sort of awe and reverence of God brought you peace.
Yeah. So prior to that, I was on my bed, just on my phone to my parents, saying, "Why do I keep doing this to God? Like, why do I keep messing it up?" And that. Just reading that part in that part of the Bible was the final piece in a jigsaw puzzle for me. Actually, I did need to turn away from my old way of life and turn to Jesus and accept His eternal life and His forgiveness.
Wow.
And it just clicked. I didn't understand it all fully then, but I had just enough, like a seed of faith, that's that nugget of truth to just walk out of there, and that was it.
Cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good.
So that was really fascinating to listen to that, Emma. What was it about that specifically then that made you choose that highlight from this season? What spoke to you particularly about it?
I think I found it really relatable, actually, to my own experiences of loss of James, and then last year, the loss of my mum. I think when he talked about his civilian friends, he said his civilian friends didn't know how to handle him and he felt different. And he didn't know how to reintegrate with life. I think there is an element of that when we go through something traumatic, that we feel like we're behind that glass window, we're watching the world go by, but we can't engage with the world because we're this different person.
Sure.
We've been transformed by our experience, and yet we want to fit in yet we want to go back to life as we know it, but we can't. And just how lonely and isolating that can be.
Yeah. I guess because it's interesting, you know, your life experience was very different. So, Simon, as you say, joining the army, going into war, we kind of associate PTSD with that. If you don't know much about PTSD, you'll think of like war-torn
military
situations.
personnel,
Exactly. Yeah. But for you, obviously, similar things. PTSD essentially just comes out of trauma, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas for you, it was losing your son and then losing your mum. But the fact you can find that relatable is really interesting because you've never been to war. It was like a totally different scenario for you, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And one of the things he talked about as well was this fear of imminency and inadequacy. And both of those really struck me. That imminency feeling, for a long time afterwards, and even now, it's like a little bit of a battle that I'll have, a personal internal battle. That sense of foreboding.
Sure.
Like if something really nice is happening, there's a sense that, because I'm knowing how quickly things can change, that they can change in an instant. And I know that's quite different compared to obviously Simon's, in the sense that his could be life-threatening to himself. He could be in danger at any single moment. But it's just that realizing that nothing can stay is permanent. And it could change in this instantly, really. And also he talked about dreams, didn't he? He mentioned about that he would come back, and when he came out of the military, I think, that he would have lots of dreams. And I can relate to that too, because I can remember, like, after James died specifically, for a long time, when I tried to go to sleep at night, all I could see was his face when I closed my eyes, or I was like reliving everything that we'd been through. And I thought that was grief, and it was grief.
Sure.
But also I think there was probably PTSD with as well.
Yeah. It's kind of, isn't it? It's, with those kinds of things, it's sort of, and I suppose with sleep is when your brain processes things, is when you kind of do that sort of packing away of memories and all of that kind of thing, is what I understand of how sleep works. So if you've gone through something traumatic, as you say, whether it was your situation, losing a son, or going to war, in some ways our brain, we're not designed to cope with that. It's kind of one of the things you guys have talked about, that like with your Christian faith, death is an intruder on our life. It's not how things were designed to be. And so death, trauma, all of these pain things, we can't cope very well with them. No. But facing up to them is really vital. And so I think it's interesting, having it called Hope in the City. What's really beautiful with that interview you did with Simon and your conversation with Rob in the first season and conversations through, is that, some people might look at this and go, oh, well, is it just a way to like be positive? Is it a power of positivity thing? It's totally not. It's like really important, like Simon, to just process that. And he's on a journey with that. He says it more in the episode. And for you, like, you've got to embrace the difficulty, the pain, to come out the other side and to have hope. Like, hope isn't a denial of the pain and the challenge and a denial of the rubbish situation that you faced. It's facing up to that and then coming out the other side and recognizing there's more to life. And for you, your faith coming through that, it gives you the hope through it, doesn't it? Yeah.
So I think even Rob would say, like, in his own journey, like with anxiety and ADHD and addiction, there's a refining process in it. And certainly I felt like there was a refining process in it, that God was still at work in it. And while it's not his plan for us, that he actually, he can use those purposes to bring about something more, it's not over. It's not over. I think if Simon was to, perhaps it might be in the future, but he'll look and he'll say, look what God's done in my life in the process of addressing this pain. I certainly would. And I think Rob would agree with that as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that's one of the big takeaways I know you guys wanted from the whole series. So as you say, this is the end of season 2, but go back, listen to season 1, listen to season 2, listen to the different episodes. Each one you can listen to standalone, but you can listen to the whole thing. One of the themes is kind of finding hope, not both in the circumstances you're in, and also the fact that it's not always going to be like this, that there's a change that's going to happen. So as you say, you've come through those years. You still carry James with you. You still talk about him. You still refer to him. You still say you've got 3 kids. For Simon, he'll always carry those experiences of being in war. But he's now, from what he said in his interview, like, he's come out of so much, come through so much. And so if you're listening to this and you're in the midst of maybe PTSD, maybe you're in the midst of like total crisis mode, or you've just had a bereavement, I hope this podcast is speaking that like you will come through. If you do the difficult thing, you know, speak to someone, go to therapy if you need that, find the help you need, pray about it, be real with what your challenges are, and just take that journey one step at a time, you will come through it. And I love that about all of those stories, and Simon in particular, because he described such a acute situation of like the pain he was in at that time, and the fact he was just even in the studio able to talk to you shows how far he'd come, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, even like Brian's story as well, he'd had PTSD, and I think that was back from like the Falklands War, and it was that in the 1980s, wasn't it?
Yeah, don't quote me on dates.
Yeah, I
sure.
think it's 1980s. He was in the Falklands War, and I just almost picture them like in their army stuff, in their army clothes and military clothes, going through an assault course. So Brian's gone through. And then he sticks his hand back and he grabs hold of Simon's and he pulls Simon through. And now Simon's on the other side and he's sticking his hand through.
Yeah.
He's pulling, because they both work for Aggies, the military charity.
That's right, Navy charity. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're both then putting their hand through. So it's like what you go through, then pull through.
Yeah.
And other people through it.
That's great.
And, there is, but there's only one place to go for the hope. They also talked about anaesthetising ourselves with the wrong things, and that touches a bit on Leo as well, doesn't it? Where he talked about his journey and that he was anaesthetising from his lifestyle, and he fell into a lifestyle, but it was anaesthetising the pain of his world. And it's where we go for that hope as well. One, Jesus is our only hope.
Yeah. As you say, he's the only one who can give a real hope. You know, whereby the Bible says, weep with those who weep, mourn with those who mourn, and rejoice with those who rejoice. It's like, I think sometimes wherever you're at with faith, listening to this, you know, you can maybe have a perception that like religion or faith, you sort of have to pretend to be someone, but that's the beauty of our faith, and is knowing Jesus. He already knows us, but there's something profound in being totally real with him, isn't there? And just being like, actually, I really struggle. Like, I'm really, really struggling right now. And he knows that, and he cares about that, and he's willing to weep with you and mourn with you and stand with you and help you get up at the other side of it. So I'm just going to say, just time-wise, you know, you've got another highlight as well that you wanted to bring up. You interviewed the girls. You said one of them was your daughter. What was that like, interviewing your own daughter? How was that for you, like that whole
It was
scenario?
really good, actually. I really enjoyed interviewing them. They surprised me. I mean, Abby particularly surprised me, because obviously when you're at home, you have the conversations and it's like the mother-daughter kind of conversations.
Yeah.
Your socks up or whatever.
Day-to-day
But
life.
yeah, that's it. That to actually interview her, you never realise how grown up they are until you see your children in different environments. So actually to interview her, incredibly impressed with both her and Amy as well. So there was some highlights which I think we're going to watch shortly.
Yeah.
A clip of some of the highlights that they did during that episode.
Awesome. We'll watch that now.
What social medias do you girls like look at to stay in touch with friends and things like that, and just to look at, and what kind of things, what channels do you go to watch?
I'd say like to actually have like conversations with Snapchat probably, but to look at people's lives, Instagram, and then just to scroll TikTok to waste your life away. TikTok.
So do you recognise it as a waste of life? You've used that phrase.
Amy's actually done it really committedly, and has sometimes not banned yourself, but got rid of it.
Like a social media break.
Well, just from TikTok, 'cause that's what I find I spend most of my time on. But I did it for like 4 months, and then we got this all TikToks. So
now we've run it for.
To use it for work now,
Yeah.
it's difficult. Tell us about those 4 months being off the doom scrolling.
I mean, I feel like then you kind of replace it with Instagram scrolling.
That's amazing.
Oh, we appreciate your honesty, Effie.
You do replace it with a bit of other stuff. Like it is, I do feel like it feels a bit more of a release from it. But yeah, I feel like you can quite quickly get bored, and you're like, oh, I'll just go on Instagram now instead. But I still think for Instagram, I only follow certain people, and most of those people will be the only people that come up. So it's more of a positive, whereas TikTok can just come up with anyone, and then you scroll, you notice you're scrolling.
I think
for
TikTok's
longer.
a lot more dangerous.
Yeah.
Go on, Abby.
I think TikTok, I mean, I've luckily never had any issues, but I know a lot of people can, like, people in the public eye can get a lot more hated on TikTok, and it's kind of known as the, I don't know what, like, the platform where, like, people get hate, I think. I mean, that's what I've heard from, like, I, like, watched a lot of YouTube podcasts of people in the public eye, because I just think their life must be so crazy. And a lot of them have said where you get the hate, it's not on YouTube or Instagram, it's on TikTok. I don't know why that is, but I also think, yeah, some of the videos that come up, you don't want to see that, and it's coming up on your thing. There is a button to press, I'm not interested, so you don't get it again. But on Instagram, you're following what you want to see. On TikTok, the For You page, it could be anything. So it could be something I do not want to see. It might come up and I'll be like, what? So I press not interested. Whereas Instagram, I'm actively choosing who I want to see on my feed, that's the word, feed.
But the problem is, once you've seen it, you've seen it.
Yeah.
Even if you choose not to see it, if you've seen something either explicit or gory or violent or whatever, that image is imprinted in your mind, isn't it? And it's how do you deal with that, like, when that happens, you know?
And coming back to your Instagram example of I can follow this and I can follow that, what are the things going through your mind that says that isn't helpful for me? And that is, what are you trying to get rid of? What have you recognized is not helpful for you to see?
Yeah, I feel like I don't really follow that many celebrities just in the public. Like, I feel like a lot of people follow the Kardashians, that kind of people.
Swifties, if you're a bit older.
Yeah.
You're not a Swiftie?
I don't know what... Oh, Taylor Swift.
Oh my goodness, yes! I feel so young. Yes, come on.
Yes.
Even I know what a Swiftie is. This is brilliant.
I feel like musicians, I don't know if this is just me, but I would more follow them because their music, but I wouldn't follow, like Amy was saying, a Kardashian, because that's all about their appearance.
Yeah. It's like they're like influencers, I guess.
Musician is just their talent.
Their talent.
Which obviously I mean,
part of it is their performance, bodily performance, but it's less just appearance stuff.
Yeah, I feel like the musicians we probably follow are probably just like I don't know how to explain it, like fun ones,
Safe.
The safe
ones.
Yeah.
They don't have really, well, I don't think too much bad language or bad references.
Okay, well let's just go on a little.
Ones.
Let's just go a bit deeper into this then. So, I mean, looking at other women for their appearance is not a new thing.
No.
I mean, glossy magazines have been around for a long time, haven't they?
They were even around when I was younger.
Did you recognise them as unhelpful?
I don't think there was the pressure as there is now. So like I'm turning 50 this year. So when I was, say, 16 to 20, I can remember it being more magazines, really. And you had the whole Kate Moss thing. And
The models.
who was the other one?
I don't know.
There was another very famous one as
Naomi
well.
Campbell.
Yes, that's who I'm thinking of.
In the 90s, this
And
is,
they were very tall and very, very slender.
Yeah.
But society knew that, and they almost disapproved of their slimness.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? So it was much more that way. It was much more like
opposite.
They were called supermodels, but it was a particular look. You had to be over 6 foot and fit as a rake.
Nobody in the everyday was expected to look like that. Nobody was
Okay.
expected to follow that kind of trend. And I remember always seeing like very slim models and made up, but it didn't seem so high pressured.
Right.
If I'm honest, it wasn't as high pressured as I see it like now. You know, there was obviously the trends of clothes and things like that, but that's since time began.
Yeah,
trends of clothes.
there was a bit in between, wasn't there? So there was the catwalk model and the glamour model, but then there was the celebrity stuff when Heat I remember my sister being younger, and it was Heat magazine and things like that, which was a bit in the middle, which was celebrities, girlfriends and wives of celebrities.
Do you think
It was
the whole Big Brother thing?
It was around that time. Lots of paparazzi taking photo of people on their holidays and things, and it became very, very showy.
Is this still magazines?
And this is still magazines, and I'm just thinking that's, that
put that away.
you can, but it's also you only get new content once a month.
Yeah.
So what is it like for you guys?
I guess a phone, you pull it out, and if you're following that person, it's there. Do you know what I mean?
So that's the stuff.
So that,
coming back to conversation that you're putting out is people who are just too showy.
And I think there's a lot of people now that recognise that it's wrong. And like a lot of people, there's quite a few people that I follow that are promoting body positivity, that kind of thing. And
Tell us about that. What's body positivity?
saying it's fine not to be a size 6. And
that's fine to be a size 6 as it is to be a size 20.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And I feel like so many people are so... like they're just open to not being negative all the time, and a lot of people, like you were saying about hate comments, a lot of people are like, this isn't right. So I think the thing with TikTok is I feel like people think it's very separate. So you have Instagram showing everything about you, and I think if people see a comment of that, they'll trace it back to you, whereas I feel like TikTok feels a bit more like separate, and
you can make accounts and they can be so hidden, so you, if you wanted to, you could comment whatever you want and no one would know that's you, whereas on Instagram I feel like it's less like that.
More accountable in that way.
So
and did you say with Instagram quite often, no, it was Snapchat, wasn't it? Instagram, do you tend to know the people that you're following? Is it a little bit more selected?
Yeah, Instagram and Snapchat, those are your friends or who you choose to follow. So you might not know them, but they're a celebrity that you've chosen to follow. Whereas TikTok, there's like a following feed and then a For You feed, and a For You feed could be anything in the world.
So that's like when you're on YouTube and it's got all the little run of videos down the side and you click, and before you know it, you're watching something that you wouldn't have chosen to watch.
But YouTube a lot of the time does actually base it on what you actually click to watch, whereas TikTok, it has a bit of both, so it always has what you never click to watch. I don't know, it's just, I think, I don't know.
How much has your friendship to one another helped navigate this?
a lot. Yeah.
Give some examples. What's that look like?
So we have known each other since we were literally born, and we didn't go to the same primary school, and then we got into secondary school and we had each other, and I think even the first few years we probably didn't speak as much as we did by the end, but just knowing Amy was there, because I used to feel so alone.
Yeah. And I think
like being a Christian at school.
Being a Christian, but like I feel like a couple of people would say they are, but they're like they don't show that. Whereas at Abby, I'd be like, oh, she's my friend, and I walk past.
Well, I'm actually following Jesus. I'm actually not just a cultural Christian, but I'm actually trying to follow Jesus. I'm actually trying to be different. But you've helped each other because I guess, as we will all acknowledge, you can't just remove yourself from the world. You don't just want to be these sort of weirdos. You want to be among it. You want to have mates. And you help navigate that together. What does that look like? What has that looked like?
I think we just really liked showing people that being a Christian is normal. Yeah. We're just, but people would, I think, I don't want to sound like a brag, but I think people did notice that we were a little bit different.
Not to give her a shout. No, but she did. For the end of sixth form, they did like a poll. Who's like most likely to be popular? Who's going to be a celebrity? One of them was who's the nicest and who's the friendliest. There were 2 separate questions that were about being nice, and Abby got both of them. So well done,
and Amy was always there alongside me, so I'd say we did it. I think we just we just showed that we didn't like to gossip, but we're still normal people. We just don't gossip.
Yeah.
So that was Abby and Amy talking when we interviewed them a few weeks back. So Abby is my daughter, as we talked about, and we just mentioned before the clip, didn't we, that you learn so much like in different environments about your children. And Abby has always had that way of being quite conscientious in things. But I was so interested in listening. Well, first of all, both of them, Abby and Amy, I felt like they were really honest and vulnerable about the challenges that are against 19 and 18-year-old girls and the things they come up against, and also that they recognise the challenges are even harder for the generations to come.
Right.
So that was something that really stood out. But it was their wisdom and insight into that. So how they recognised the impact that those voices can have on those. Sure. They were talking about TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat and all of those things, and just the way they were encouraging people to not just go with it and tick and follow everybody, but to actually be decisive in that and to to be, I suppose, proactive rather than reactive in that they actually guarded their minds. And that's biblical, isn't it? It tells us to guard our minds. And for me, that was evidence they were doing that.
Yeah, totally. That's what stood out to me. I think it was, this was a bit of a different episode and sort of one of the standout ones in the sense of the subject matter wasn't that, it wasn't so much about trauma in their lives necessarily. It was more about the life that they're faced with, like what's modern life like. And as you say, one of the major things from those highlights is the role of social media in the world we live in. It's changed so much from when I was a kid. You're slightly older than me, not to age you and stuff, but dramatically from when you were a kid as well. And so, you know, for me, it was, I was on the crossover of like dial-up internet to actual internet. So it was all kind of new stuff. And remember that as a kid. And then all these things come in. So the platforms they're saying like, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Snapchat. I was kind of like, wow, that makes me feel exhausted just listening to that. And as you say, though, the wisdom they've got, you know, beyond their years in some ways of, I just really sense the word discipline, like in a really positive sense. Like they're disciplining themselves, being self-disciplined to not just, as you say, go with the flow of it and to think, right, do I want to be on TikTok? If I want to be on TikTok, what do I need to do to curate the content I'm looking at?
To manage it.
Exactly.
To protect myself. But there's also the other side of it, which it kind of left me thinking about, was what we present of ourselves.
Sure.
As well.
Yeah,
on,
so true.
On social media. And I know certainly, you know, you read in current news and things now about people who've made comments in their teenage years and they've done very well, very successful, like in the business or whatever. Yeah. And then those comments that they made in their teenage years come back and bite them on the bum, really. Yeah, yeah. Then their careers are destroyed.
Sure.
And so actually knowing that whatever we put of ourselves on social media now or any social platform will be held against us forever.
Yeah, so true. It happens quite a lot to footballers in you know, the stuff I'm interested in. You hear sometimes they'll bring up a comment. Sometimes it's just like silly, like they, you know, were an Arsenal fan as a teenager and then they signed for Tottenham or whatever. But yeah, no, you're totally right. And I think it's a really tough thing for teenagers to have to face. I mean, I wasn't that. I was pretty sound as a teenager to some extent, but I wouldn't have been that aware of what the future's going to be like. To think like that is such a heavy.
And you think
the whole environment.
And also
yeah, totally, absolutely.
Like we were talking earlier, we mentioned about Liam and the girls and about that desire to fit in as well. I mean, I certainly as a teenager think I would have been a bit like, oh, I'll put that because to meet the approval of so-and-so who I know, who I seek to get affirmation from. But the girls, what really surprised me is they were just, they seemed self-assured that they'd made their decision. They recognised what brought them hope, what gave them a future, what would edify them. And then they boundaried themselves around that, both in what they presented to the world and also what they read and what they exposed themselves to. I mean, Amy, at the beginning of this episode, talked about she works at M&S as a window.
Right.
You know, does all the design
in
front of the window there. So she was sort of saying about the body image, wasn't she, and body positivity. And I think probably she's got a real interest in fashion. That's one of her passions. And so that would be very evident, like in the work she does. But she said, you know, that it's moving away from that now, that body positivity, it's not about, it's, Abby said it, didn't she? It's okay to be a size 6 or a size 20, anything in between. And that they're non-judgmental towards that. They're like, it's okay. You know, it's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of almost created its own it's created its own culture and then its own counterculture. So they're talking about like trolling, the hate that people get on TikTok. And then as you say, like the sort of counter to that of wanting to be positive and encourage people and where that's gone to. It's a really interesting subject. And I think getting their perspective in the moment, in it. I mean, we're all in it. You know, I have to navigate social media. I've got reasons why I got rid of Instagram and stuff for a while. It takes a lot of your time and energy and all that kind of stuff and presents you with stuff that really isn't helpful. So it's interesting. They said, you know, you curate your content. You do a bit more on Instagram, but it's a challenge even that. Like for me, it was when I was late 20s, you know, they profile a late 20s something guy, like you want to look at girls. And I was like, well, I'm married. I've got a child. Yeah. It's not helpful for me to be sent this content. And so I just deleted Instagram for a while because I was like, this isn't taking me on a helpful path at all. And so I had to face that. And then eventually I found to what they said that you can go like, I don't want this content. I don't want this content. And then you curate your platform and it starts to do what you want it to do. But you have to be really proactive with that. Like,
but the other thing is I certainly did. And I think probably you were on the beginning of all of this.
Sure.
We know a life without it.
Yes, that's so true.
And so I think there's always that comparison that we you know, I wasn't raised with a phone in my pocket from the age of 10 or 12 or whatever. You know, mine was still plugged into the wall and had the round dials, kind of thing, you know.
A phone was a phone. That was it. It just phoned people.
My first mobile phone, I mentioned this, my first mobile phone was like 25 years ago.
Right.
So I was well into my 20s, and the only game I had was Snake.
Yes.
And then all you could do was text and call.
Right.
So you had your address for a text, call, and Snake. And that's what a phone did. So it wasn't so invasive. Although you were available for phone calls and texts, you weren't you weren't invaded.
No. You weren't on 24/7 in that sense.
No, that's it. So we remember, and even interestingly, they mentioned about seeing the generations afterwards, because I think since they finished their A levels, the AI has come out, and how different that is, and affects kind of study and everything else as well. And they can see the difference, the before the AI and the after the AI, and in the same way that we can see the kind of
before internet,
before internet and after internet, or before social media and after social media. But for them, social media is really normal.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm going to ask you this question, even though I think it's a sort of unfair question and a question you can't really answer, in the sense of like, it's the what if question, which is almost a bit impossible. But did you listen to that and think, I don't know how I'd have coped if I was being the age they are now? Like, are you able to think, how would 19-year-old me have coped if I had Snapchat and Instagram and stuff?
Not as well as they did.
Yeah,
not as well as they did. I mean, even now it's a bit of a struggle. So I'm only on Facebook, and I've said to you before, I have to deactivate myself and come out of Facebook for periods of time, because it just sucks me in. And I can lose hours. But I think I would have been absolutely like rooted to my phone if I learned it back then. They do much better at it than I do, definitely. But the other thing is, everything's on our phone, isn't it now? So
banking and check the weather and everything.
If anything and everything, you know, this is how we do socializing as well. So I think about WhatsApp and Messenger. And within WhatsApp groups, like we have a small group that we run from our church during the weekdays, or, you know, one evening a week. And when people come to it, but how we communicate in between is on WhatsApp. So it generates that sense of community. And while that's a really positive thing, how do you how do you differentiate? I mean, I could say the same for Facebook as well. There's elements of Facebook that I find really helpful. But it's also full of adverts and clips and reels that I don't need to see.
Sure.
And you kind of can't separate them.
No, and I can only speak for myself, but I get sucked into it so much, and I find it so distracting. And I just, like you say, I didn't have a smart. I had, what did I have? I think I had like a Nokia 3310 sort of setup. So again, texting, phone calls, and Snake, and that was it when I was a early teen. And so I don't know how to cope really with where it is now. And being a dad to two, you know, that's you interviewing your daughter at 19. So you're kind of like, oh, great. She's kind of got a lot of these things. I've got kids who are 5 and 2. So I'm thinking, man, what's it going to be like for them in their teenage years? How are they going to cope? We're already, myself and my wife, having those conversations of like, we don't want them to have, exactly. We don't want them to have a phone by X age is what we're aiming for. So like 14 and stuff. But realistically, that's going to be so hard because their friends are going to have them well into primary school. I know that's the fact, but there's so much studies out there that early adoption is really damaging. And when kids can't put those boundaries in, so as you say, Abby and Amy were able to put those boundaries in. They're at an age where they know themselves enough to know what's good and not. Whereas if you put that in front of a younger child, it's really hard. So it's a difficult one, and it's a really timely topic. And I'm glad you did that episode. Looking back at the season, you know, that's, I think, episode 11. It's I think it's called when friendship supports faith or something like that.
I mean, the other side of it is as well. Do people have to come to their own place of self-regulating? Because actually, we were quite firm with our children, like at bedtimes and things, when they were like in secondary school, and we'd be like, right, phones downstairs in the kitchen. Then obviously as they get older, like when they're 19, 20 and 21,
you can't insist
they're adults, aren't they?
No.
But there comes a point where they have to self-regulate. So if we start telling them and saying, you know, and controlling it, then actually that's not helpful, because it's like the whole forbidden fruit, you know, so totally tempting, isn't it?
Totally.
So I'll be making it something that they look towards. So do we leave them to learn to self-regulate? How do you teach them to self-regulate?
And that's it, isn't it? It's showing what's good for them. And I think of what was evident for both of them is their faith, is their own sense of relationship with Jesus, what that's meant for them. And as you say, you and your husband would have put in stuff that helped foster an environment that, but you could never make them come to faith, find those things that are healthy for them. So it's really it must be so encouraging to you to see like the fruits of that to some extent in that.
Absolutely. But I also think it's the people that are around them.
Totally.
There's a phrase that they use quite often when it's a dedication at our church, and they say it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
It's a really well-known phrase, and I think it does, because I think there's sometimes things that other people can speak into our kids' lives that as parents we can't speak in.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, oh, there goes mum again.
Yeah. So
whereas
true.
when other people say it, it's actually like,
yeah. Actually, that's why mum was saying it. yeah. But it's that was what was key of that episode as well, because it's not the episode was around, in a big way, their sort of friendship and as you say, the fact that they are peers. Neither of them is a parental role to the other or anything like that, or a hierarchical role. They're just mates. And they're just mates who are going, yeah, actually, do you know what? This is a challenge for me. So it's really cool to see. And it's really, I think in terms of hope in the city, there's real hope in that. If you're listening to this and you are the parent of teenagers, there's hope that the connections they make, you know, I think sometimes we can demonize young people. Society does sometimes. And also, like we've said, we might have struggled as teens with our phones, but we might have equally found friends like Abby found Amy and Amy found Abby who would have helped us to go, yeah, do you know what? This isn't that healthy. Let's regulate this. So it's encouraging to see that that is happening in that generation anyway, to go, actually, do you know what? We don't need all this stuff all the time in the way that it's presented.
I mean, the other side is as well, the other thing to think about is, while we can't decide the friendships for our children, I think, like, so I knew Amy's mum before we had the girls. So actually, we were already friends, and then we had the girls, and
we hung out.
We did things together because the girls were the same age within, and there's quite a big group of girls of Amy's age at the church we go to.
Sure.
But those friendships were really fostered, and we did lots of socializing and lots of activities with them. So there was friendships that went deeper. So I guess from a parental point of view, it's like fostering those
healthy relationships. And it's, I suppose, your own healthy relationships, and then your kids then kind of come into that community. As you say, you have then a village to raise them in that sense, don't you?
Absolutely. And so then they listen to their friends' parents as well. Be more And same with Abby's friends will say to Abby, like, oh, your mum said such and such. And I think
because what is it about your friends' parents always being cooler than your own parents? Why is that? Like, it's bizarre, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know what
it's funny, isn't it?
I don't know what it is.
Because I'm in the stage where my kids, you know, love me, want to spend time with me. It's beautiful, it's amazing, but it's a lot. Like when you get home with a 5 and a 2-year-old, it's amazing, and I'm not taking it for granted because I've, you know, as you say, I know that when they come to teenagers, I'm going to be the uncool dad. It's going to happen overnight, so I'm waiting for that. We'll have to see where that goes. No, it's great. I mean, it's been really cool to listen to those two highlights. Very different in many ways, very diverse. Show the kind of diversity of subjects that you look at through the series. But like, what would you? Well, I suppose, what's it been like for you in doing this? You're 2 seasons in now. It was something you never expected to get into. You can listen in the first season as to how it kind of came about, and you share on that. But like, how have you found, like, what's been your takeaway as being a presenter? What have you, is there something you've like learned from other people more than other things, or something that you'd say, actually, yeah, this has been a surprise to me that's come out of it that I didn't expect?
I think probably one of the big things, just as you're asking me there, is that people are more alike than we think they are.
Right.
So we often look at other people and we think we're very different, but I'd say there's more similarities than differences. So like when I look at Malcolm Duncan's life,
sure,
there's things I can relate to and find similar. There's things like, you know, we're talking about Abby and Amy, and Liam as well, who had quite an extreme kind of criminal lifestyle, but there's still relatable things. Those things that drove him to those lifestyles. I would say, in doing the presenting and having the privilege of interviewing people and talking with Rob and whatever, I realise we're more alike. People are more alike to one another. To the importance of the relationship. That has been the standout thing. That eureka moment when you think, oh my goodness, it's not just me.
Sure.
And I'm not that weird.
Yeah.
You know, I think that would be my biggest takeaway. I mean, it's been an absolute privilege and an honour to do it, and I love it. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
No, not at all.
But the fact that, you know, as people, we're made to be in community, aren't we? One another, whatever that community looks like. It's really valuable.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that's come out a bit of a theme, even of this episode, is, and certainly this season, is that the willingness of these guests to come on, and obviously you and Rob to do what you've done, the willingness to be vulnerable in this space. As you say, it gives other people a sense of, oh, it's not just me. It gives that sense of, wow, other people are going through it too. And I suppose my takeaway as a listener would be, don't be vulnerable with everyone. That's not wise. But with people around you, for your own sake, but also for theirs, like a sense of a bit of vulnerability of what you're going through.
Yeah.
Actually could be a massive help to them, and you never know what they might be going through, what they might have had buried, and actually you being real with that can really, really, really help. And that's amazing. And I love how for you, for Malcolm, for Simon, for others, you've like what's been a real pain and a challenge and a suffering, and still is in many ways. It's not that like becomes easier, all of it doesn't, but you've been able to use that to help other people. That's a really, it's kind of where we started this interview, and it's kind of where we're ending in a way. It's beautiful that can happen, isn't it? It's an amazing thing.
It's beauty for ashes, isn't
it?
It's beauty for ashes, and we're promised that in scripture. Beauty for ashes, where we think something is the end of something. Actually, it's perhaps only the beginning of something really beautiful, because God is amazing.
Amazing. Well, there we go. That's season 2. There we go. We'll watch this space for more episodes. We'll hope to get to that before too long, but thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening.